So,
Hello, everybody. This is Elizabeth Clare Brewington and Elton Brewington. We're having a wonderful day with the kickoff of our 2020 Health and Wellness series that has been sponsored today by Jerry Baker, Fit for Life, LLC. We're asking everybody to do the Meology survey. And we will make sure that you have this link if you're watching it on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you are. And we would like you to do this survey to help you with your health goals for 2022. We've had some amazing speakers and it's just been a wonderful day. My next speaker is Brian Hicks, and I'm very excited because we've been talking about data. And we finally have somebody who's going to present to us data. I know many of you have seen Dr. Prasad. We've had a lot of medical events, and we're going to be doing medical tourism this year. And so medical studies are very key to our magazine and our data. So Michael Hicks is the senior analyst with medical device sales, and he's going to tell us a little bit about medical device data. So I'm going to spotlight him. So Michael, over to you. Brian.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes. Can you speak louder?
speak up.
Yes. How about, is this a little better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for having me over. It's a real pleasure. I know I'm very in-depth into the medical devices industry, so it's always a pleasure to hear more of the healthcare and just health and wellness as a whole, to hear about this and get other people's perspectives. And today, I hope I can reciprocate by providing you some insights that perhaps you may not have really considered too much in the past, which is really about understanding how COVID-19 in the past 2 years has really affected the medical devices industry as a whole. There's a lot to talk about, and I'll start with a brief introduction, and yeah, we'll just dive into some of the information that hopefully you'll find really interesting, and I'd be happy to take on any questions you may have at any point. So I'll share my screen first. Let me know if you can see it. How is that? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
On? Wonderful. Okay. So I work at Global Data, and Global Data is a market intelligence company where we provide a lot of in-depth insights. Let's see here. There we go. Where we provide a lot of in-depth data, insights, and analytical tools and information for clients to make better business decisions. And we span our industries across over 19 or almost 20 different coverages now. So you can see the list here on the right, well, in the middle to the right of the screen. Global Data covers information from everything from aerospace, defense information, industries within the banking sector or packaging, everything. And where I come in is, as the name implies, with my background, is medical. So we focus on medical device sales and trends within the past, well, in the past 7 years. And then we also forecast a lot of the trends that will continue to happen into 2030. So moving ahead, I just want to kind of start off by saying that Global Data leverages a slew of different sources of information and data where we compile them together, make analyses, and present them in easy to understand formats. And one of the ways and one of the strengths, in my opinion, of Global Data among many of the other market research firms is that we actually leverage real-world data sources, such as the one from the United States, where we can actually gather hospital purchasing invoice data. So that what that means is that anytime a hospital or an ambulatory surgical center or any other medical facility, whenever they purchase a medical device, there's a record keeping of it. And we subscribe to that record keeping database so that we can actually analyze what has been the trend temporally and geographically on the device purchasing patterns. And on the right side here in this diagram, this kind of illustrates just a select number of all the different types of therapies, areas, procedural types, and ergo the device types that we cover in Global Data Medical. So you can see here, for example, we have neurovascular devices. We also cover hip and knee related devices, wound care, etc. What's really nice about Global Data's methodology and the way we analyze the market is that the database that we subscribe to actually covers purchasing invoice information from over 2,500 medical facilities in the United States, which makes up about, as you see on the slide there, about 18 to 20% of all US hospitals. So we can get a really good understanding of what has been happening throughout the country, and we can make some very conservative but very good estimations and extrapolations to figure out what has been happening at the national level. We also have this kind of data going back 7 years, so from 2015 all the way to the current date, and this information is continuously being updated. Now, you can probably appreciate that there's a lot of different insights we can gather with purchasing patterns of anything, let alone medical devices. What I'd like to show you in a graphical form here is what has actually happened in terms of the healthcare spend in the United States as a percentage month over month and year over year ever since COVID started in March 2020. So using March 2020 as a baseline at 100%, you can see that in the following month, the market had actually, or the total healthcare spend had declined by nearly 32%. And this accounts for not just the types of devices that were affected most, but also those that were relatively unaffected as well, because as you can probably appreciate, certain types of devices had been impacted much more heavily than others. One thing that we've probably seen on the news repeatedly is that a lot of elective procedures in the past 2 years have been canceled or postponed, like hip replacements or knee surgeries or what have you. But on the other hand, there have been other investments within the healthcare. So things like ventilators for use in the intensive care units have actually skyrocketed. So all of those balanced out result in what you're seeing here in the graphical form here. So as it goes without saying that there was a significant decline in healthcare spend in April 2020, but remarkably, the recovery had actually followed very rapidly, very quickly following the most impacted month. And by about H2 2020, so the second half of 2020, a lot of the recovery had actually already happened. There are some exceptions, of course, depending on the device type we're talking about. But at a high level, this is what has been our trend, our analysis so far. The data that I'm showing you here goes right up until October 2021, so just a few months ago. And this is being repeatedly updated as we perform our analyses at Global Data. I emphasized on the fact that there was a temporal trend in the impact of COVID on US medical device purchasing patterns, but there's also a bit of a geographic pattern as well, which is really interesting. So what I'm showing you here are 4 different, regions, I guess, within the US, the South, West, Midwest, and Northeast, where we have the different medical facilities, mostly hospitals and ambulatory surgical centers that purchase the different devices. And you can see that although all in all, there has been a pretty similar type of recovery pattern across the different regions, you will notice that, for example, the South and the Midwest exhibited the strongest recovery between the most impacted month of April 2020 all the way up to July 2021, while the other 2 regions have a little bit more catching up to do, relatively speaking. This was kind of an interesting thing we've noticed. So this is really one of the strengths of analyzing the market trends using, say, the database that we subscribe to specific to the US, where we can gather insights, again, temporally or geographically. I'd like to switch gears a little bit here, and I'd like to now talk about the healthcare spend, but by specific companies. So a lot of these, this is a big table, but it's actually fairly straightforward to analyze, where on the rows, you see the different rankings of different companies. And on the columns are simply just the month and the date, like the month and the year, where you can see that different companies are performing at different rankings throughout the whole COVID pandemic. So right at March 2020, on the very left-hand column, you can see all the different companies that have been ranked accordingly. So for example, Medtronic, which you may have heard of, is arguably the largest medical device company in the world. And they are ranked first in terms of all the hospitals that purchase their devices. And then following that was Johnson & Johnson, Abbott Laboratories, Stryker, etc. But what's really interesting is that since the onset of COVID, so mostly in April 2020 at this point, there has been a shift in different companies that are performing better than others. So for example, you can see that in the second row, second column, I guess, so where you see in the blue cell, it says Medline Industries. They're a very massive company, and their positioning among all the large companies had actually increased, while Johnson & Johnson had actually decreased by a single ranking point. So at a high level, you can see that a lot of the changes had happened in the first 3 to 4 months of the pandemic. But throughout 2021, there have been some switches between performances of certain companies over another. And this is likely going to continue. Of course, even without COVID, companies are always beating each other in terms of their market share. So this is always going to be bound to change, but you can tell from this graph alone that COVID had a significant impact in the first several months. And this has been really remarkable, in my opinion. Just to kind of continue off of that trend. So when we look at the relative revenue trends for the top companies, you can see that almost all of them, if not all of them, like the top 8 or so companies, had all been negatively impacted in April 2020. That's indicated by the decline or in the dip in the line graph on the left here. However, following that, the recovery had spiked. And for some of these companies, they're even seeing a surge in revenue following in 2021. So that makes sense in a lot of instances where if a lot of elective procedures, let's say, were delayed, there's a huge backlog of people who are looking to get those procedures being performed. So not only are hospital staff and physicians in OR rooms being fully booked and being exhausted to work overtime to treat those cases, the medical devices themselves that are used to perform those procedures are also being purchased at a higher rate. So this is really, it goes to show that a lot of times procedural rates actually correlate highly with device purchasing patterns as well. And I think this is the last one. I just want to show you that in addition, similarly to what I've shown you in the previous 2 slides or so, for the different rankings of the performance by company, this one is showing you by the different types of products. So for example, following the COVID pandemic back in 2020, in April, you can see that several new different types of products had suddenly spiked in their product share, let's say, of all those that are being sold. Transcatheter heart valves are surprisingly remaining to be at a high rate. However, you can see now that COVID-19 tests, for example, were immediately developed and sold at an unbelievable or unprecedented rate following the pandemic. And you can kind of tell that overall, COVID-19 tests, once they started appearing in April 2020, they maintained at a very high rate, even going as far as like reaching the #1 spot in August 2020. But throughout 2021, they do still have a significantly high share of all those that were being sold. They have kind of gone down a little bit as well. And I won't go into every single example here. You can see for yourself which ones have really increased and which ones have decreased. But I just want to really highlight in this brief presentation that what global data does is really take a quantitative approach while also considering qualitative factors too, of course, to really analyze the market. What has been happening? How have different events unfolded, and how have they affected sales of the medical devices? And this is really critical for all kinds of clients, frankly, not just the medical device companies themselves who want to better understand what's happening and navigate this complex and unprecedented environments, but also for professional services firms who want to understand better about which different types of medical devices are worth investing in, or which startup companies, let's say, should be entering which kinds of markets, let's say. So it's a lot of different applications for the different uses, I guess, in our data. And while this has been really focused on the devices themselves and less so on personal health and well-being, I think it's important to know that medical device sales and medical devices industry as a whole are a component of healthcare, and healthcare is a broad ranging umbrella term that includes personal health care, but also societal health as well. And having, having an understanding of where the market is moving, I think is really good to know for your own work, but also just understanding something that you're not necessarily as familiar with as usual. So I'll leave it there for now,
Okay.
but I would be more than happy to take any questions.
Okay, that was phenomenal, Brian. Wow. I mean, some of the slides I couldn't see so clearly, and I'd love to get your contact information if you could forward them over to us. That would be wonderful. But I went to a conference once in Singapore where it was a medical device conference, and they were talking about knees. And that, of course, I don't know, they described that we purchase so many knees and hips from, for American consumer use. And so I asked the question, I said, so what happens when you have to send a knee back? And so, because a friend of mine, he had knee surgery and he's replaced his knee 3 times.
Oh
and so, so do you walk it back? Do you send it in mail? I mean, it's just funny joke. But medical devices play an important part of our culture, and we use them. And your review and preview is so phenomenal, and it has an impact, and it shows the global dynamics of health and healthcare. Do you know Circule?
I do not think so, no.
Okay, Circule is the device that, it's an electronic Bluetooth device that you plug it to your computer, and then you charge it, and then you wear it, and you sleep with it on, and then after an overnight, it produces a report on your physical state of being. Yeah. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and it gives some in-depth information about some of the deficiencies, what you need to pay close attention to. And I mean, so I'm really interested in, and we're really interested in what you produce here.
They actually might be a good client for you. They might need your data,
right?
Because they're getting into these kits for COVID testing. So
absolutely,
I'll introduce you to
them.
them.
So please place your information in our chat box, a contact, so that we can telephone and email, so we can talk further. And as a matter of fact, for the consumers and the buyers and people on the line, understand that we're headed toward total data. Total data. And when you can record, they got these devices for your car now that you can attach them to your vehicle, and it can do a diagnosis on your entire car, telling you what it pulls down all the important computer information. And so it's only fair that we're able to do that for our bodies and our spirit, our minds, and physically. So I really appreciate you being on with us today. And please let's exchange chat details
and get together.
And let's do some additional detailed information for you.
So any questions? I think that was a really good presentation. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, we are kicking off 2022 with our health and wellness series. Our sponsor for today is Jerry Baker, a former captain with the U.S. Medical Corps, U.S. Navy. And he has given us a free survey to do, the Meology survey. And we're encouraging everybody watching this broadcast on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're looking at it, to go ahead and do that survey. I'll make sure that you have the link available to you. And his company is Fit for Life. And he did a fantastic presentation on why we age and why we get sick. So we'll make sure that video is also available for you to see, and as well as the other presenters for today.
Let me share this with you. In his presentation, I encourage you to go back to review it. In his presentation, he talked about free radicals. Many of you have heard of free radicals, but he also suggested in his presentation, or the video did, that there are ways and supplements that could make a free radical whole again. Make a free radical whole again, and that was quite vital. And so I encourage you to take a look at the review of his presentation.
And we want to thank you for watching Brightside Global Trade. We are moving to being able to send you a newsletter in your mailbox with invites to our next events We'll also be having alerts on giveaways, promotions, grants, contests to help empower your business in multiple ways. So make sure you check out our website and all the very new things that we're offering you. I also want to thank you for streaming with us today and watching this segment. Make sure you write us a comment. We'll give you 2 free tickets to the next event that we host. And you're watching BrightsideGlobalTrade.org.
One other thing, when you go to the YouTube and you say or write in green lights all the way, just say green lights all the way.
Yeah, we're trying to do an algorithm so that we get more views. So this month, it is green lights all the way. So
GLATW.
All you have to do is click on this video, go to YouTube, subscribe, and then write in the comment, green lights all the way. This is a secret code for everybody who's watching. And you may be surprised, we might be giving you a giveaway if you write it on random. So make sure you write green lights all the way in the comments. Thank you so much.